Hello, everyone. This is episode 3 of Through Lidless Eyes Rewatch of Evangelion. It's been a few years, but I'm ready to admit it. Evangelion 3.33, You Cannot Redo, is not a very good movie. For a long time, I was convinced this was a good movie. The haters are just hating, But it really is not very good. Oh, man. I have by far the least notes for this one, which might not come as too much of a surprise. It is the shortest one. But I also just kind of stopped taking notes at some point, which didn't happen with either of the other two. But, yeah. So, what's up with the discourse around this one, right? At this point, it had been a good 5 years since the first movie. So what's different now? At this point, around the time that 3 was the most recent, the current Evangelion movie, it was, very popular to consider Evangelion a deconstruction, It's really subverting your expectations, right? That was sort of the, movies like The Last Jedi and Madoka Rebellion kind of get lumped into the same sort of category as Evangelion 3, as a kind of weird, intentionally misleading sequel that sort of goes in weird directions for the sake of it. That's sort of how these movies are seen anyway. There's no real reason for me to show you the cover the way that I did for the first two, because it's quite easy to describe. It's just a blue box. It's just a blue box that says Evangelion 3 on it. It's not like at that point they really needed to convince you to buy it, right? Especially since it took them so many years to actually release the damn thing. Anyone who wanted it, was damn sure that they were going to have the pre-order the second you could get it. So what's the story? It's been 14 years. Within the context of the movie, it's actually only been a few hours for me. It's still the same day as the past 2 episodes. Still haven't slept yet. Just been watching the movies, writing down stuff, making my notes, and hoping that the internet will come back on for long enough that I can start uploading these damn things. So after 14 years, Shinji is in space. Not even joking. He's floating up in Earth's orbit. He's guarded by various versions of Evangelion Unit 4, which are just kind of like autonomous drones. Asuka and Mari are sent to retrieve him, and that's like kind of like, this is sort of the first bit of confusion that seems to pop up with this movie for some people. They're not saving him. I actually, like, back in the day, this is the reason I stopped using r/anime, which I believe is still the subreddit I have the most karma in, but I stopped using r/anime because I got temporarily banned for posting a minor spoiler for this movie. Like, probably a good year or two after it came out. But of course, the official English release, the home release at least, there was a theatrical run that has basically been expunged from the record because apparently the original dub was bad, I guess. Kara didn't like it, at least. But yeah, it was a good, like, 3 or 4 years after the Japanese theatrical release. It took that long for this to get a Western home release. So yeah, I got in a minor argument with someone about what was even happening at the start of this movie. That's a good sign when people can't even figure out what the fuck is happening in the movie. So they're not saving him. They don't care about Shinji. They make that pretty clear, that they not only do they not care about Shinji, they don't care about individual people, period. Like, they don't want Shinji because of the person he is, They don't really want Shinji at all. He's not really an asset to them. They don't want someone who can pilot Unit 1. They specifically want to stop him from piloting Unit 1. They want to keep him from doing anything. They just want to lock him up and make sure that Nerve doesn't get to him first. That's it. He wakes up in the same kind of quarantine chamber that Asuka was in the last movie. He's got markings on his feet showing that they don't even really know if this is actually Shinji or if it's just an entity that looks like him. It could be an angel. It could be Lord knows what. They're constantly pointing guns at him, and obviously one of the big parts of the movie is he's basically got a bomb strapped to his neck for most of it. I think it's interesting, just like how obviously this is a movie about work. like you've got that whole bit, where there's a scene where it happens with Maya, and there's another scene right after that where it happens with Misato, where in both cases, they're the leaders of particular branches of Villa, and they're underlings, they're mere peons doing the menial tasks, are like, hey, we're understaffed, a lot of the few people we do have are inexperienced, and we don't have the equipment we need. And Maya and Misato are just kind of like, we don't give a shit. We don't want any excuses from this new generation of young men. Just figure it out. Girl boss. Yeah, we don't need you. You do nothing. Keeping in mind, of course, that Shinji derives pretty much all of his self-worth from, other people's expectations of him. It's a good sign. It's real good. I'm sure he'll handle that really well. There's a continued bizarre fascination, with productive scale. Battleships, strung up with AT fields like, marionette strings. Later in the movie, when we see the wreckage of Tokyo 3, we just see fields of, tanks and leftover rifles for the Avas, just a bunch of shit gone to waste. We see all the bicycles still left unused for who knows how many years, probably 14 years. And it's just, it's silly. So Shinji is as far as he's concerned, the end of the last movie is the last thing he remembers until now. So he's confused, Didn't I say Rey? Asuka says, it doesn't even matter if you did. One person doesn't matter. In this world, where all we have is to be motivated by mere survival, we can't care about one person. Are you kidding me? So a full 30 minutes into the movie, and nobody has really explained anything to Shinji. Like, it's at that point that Rey breaks in through the wall. And you see, the thing is, there are some interesting moments in the film, and that's one of them, is because it's such a significant, release of tension, because up until that point, it's all just sort of Shinji, having his experience, his life mediated in this way, right? And it's at that point we're like, no, the walls are busting open. Time for shit to happen. And of course, that's when, Misato lets it slip, that they're not NERV. There's some other organization fighting against NERV. NERV are the bad guys now? What? I mean, I guess, they always were. It's just now, even in Neon Genesis Evangelion, they were arguably the bad guys, and they're just, there was never a force against them. But yeah, like 30 minutes in, they just barely start explaining literally anything to him, that Rey doesn't exist anymore, that they're not at NERV, it's some other place. And I didn't write any notes for a little while, because not a whole lot really happens. For the first half of the movie, it's just Shinji being led around by people and sort of looking at shit, They're not really telling him much until past the halfway point. Still, there is some amount of stuff that the audience could piece together, but the next note that I have is when Shinji goes to find Rey after he's sort of settled his things in his room. He goes to find Rey, and he asks why don't you have any books? Don't you like reading? Does Rey like reading? It's not just, does Rey read, period. Has she been shown to read? There's literally maybe a couple times. In the original series, there's maybe a scene or two where she's reading a technical manual, or a German, science journal or something, but I don't feel like at any point it's really been made clear that oh yeah, reading, that's something she enjoys. It was made pretty clear that she enjoyed food and cooking, but reading, that kind of seems more like a Rey XP character trait. Something, when people talk about mimetic mutation or flanderization, being bookish is more a trait that you would attribute to characters inspired by Rey. The kind of broader cultural idea and anime stereotype, not the actual character. But of course, this isn't the actual character, Rey. It is just another one of the bajillion clones of her. I do think it's interesting that between Rey, who is, they flat out say in this movie, Rey doesn't have a soul. She's not She's not a normal person. And Kaoru, of course, is an angel. And it's, it's just interesting that it seems like the only people that Shinji can build what seems to be, for him at least, fulfilling relationships are with people who aren't human. Interesting. Kaoru says, when he starts teaching him to play piano, can't be afraid of trying new things. Alluding to perhaps Shinji should try to find something other than piloting the Eva, Shunning change, Shinji prefers the empty, merciless world of the abyss. The vast emptiness of space. Because he himself says, he knows that in the 14 years, as crazy as the world has gotten, nothing up in space has changed much. To be at least observable, meaningful to him. Lilin, this is Kaoru. This is a quote from Kaoru. Lilin seek to change the world instead of themselves. Again, very clear. Same message as always, right? Same thing I've been saying every episode of this series. You gotta know your place. You gotta just conform or die, bucko. Come on, Shinji, stop being so naive and do your damn job. Right? So what's going on with Near Third Impact, the failures of Infinity, all this? What are all these red guys? What are all those red guys littered around? Again, haven't seen the fourth movie, but I'm pretty sure what's happening throughout this series is the plan for Instrumentality is to reduce all life on Earth, including the angels, to LCL, and then reform both humans and angels into a sort of hybrid, that has both the fruit of life and knowledge. Like in the original series, in End of Evangelion, the goal, right, was to create a single being that had both, to ascend to godhood, so that they could turn everyone into goo, to get rid of both the fruit of life and knowledge and just turn everyone to a, primordial state without individuated consciousness or any meaningful distinction between life and death in the first place, let alone, infinitely self-replicating. Immortality isn't, I don't know quite the word for what the angels are. They're just virtually indestructible. I think the goal with Instrumentality this time around is to just basically turn everyone into gods. Oh god, is that it? I thought I had more than that. Holy shit. We're basically at the end of my notes, because that's pretty much where I stopped. Because, holy shit. You get an hour into this movie, or a little less than an hour, and it's just... You get, like, less than an hour into this movie. And it's just... After so much time explaining nothing and introducing a handful of things that the audience could figure a lot of it out for themselves, but you just have Kaoru explaining shit, and it's a little awkward, but it makes sense, right? Because even if it's stuff that a savvy audience could piece together, you at least should have, like, the moment where Shinji realizes what's happening. And that's one way to do it. But then they have Fuyutsuki start dumping lore, and it's like... It legitimately feels like... It's all shit that, like, if you're familiar with the TV series or anything, or even, like, if you're familiar with sort of like the rules of like how this shit works, you can figure this out. You don't need someone to spell all this shit out for you. But they do it. They do it. And it just kind of feels like at some point they went like, oh crap, people who haven't seen the originals are probably gonna have no idea what's happening in this fucking movie. So I guess we better give everyone a quick primer on what the deal is with Shinji's mom and Rei, and how's all that connected? What's the deal here? Of course, I've already talked about all this shit. What's the fucking point? So the movie's pretty cleanly split up into 3 acts. You have the first act where nobody's telling Shinji anything, and then it pretty much immediately ends as soon as I believe it's Mark 9 intercepts Shinji from the AAA Wunder. And then the second act, of course, is him learning to play piano with Kaoru and building a degree of trust that, of course, ultimately is dashed in the end. And the final act is, of course, the big battle, the fourth impact. So, what even happens at the end of this movie? There was a point once upon a time where I was a lot more confident that I understood what was happening during the last act of this movie, and I don't feel so confident about it anymore. I'm really not sure. Like I get the gist. The gist of it is Gendo wants Seele out of the picture. He wants to do instrumentality his way. So he sets up this elaborate ruse where he sets up fourth impact to start and to make it look like it's just going to happen. It's just going to, to completion. But it's not. He's set up some ruse, whatever it is, to make sure that it looks like it will, but that it gets stopped. That way, he can say, hey, Seele, we're doing it. All right. Now we got to return your souls to the whatever. So we got to kill you, And then he has Fuyutsuki hit all the switches while they have their conversation and like, oh, yes, we will fulfill your will, But that's not the plan. Gendo's going to do what he wants. So, they set it all up, get Seele out of the picture, and then make sure that the impact doesn't actually go through. How? I don't know. The sequence of events and stuff, it's not super clear. Like, is there stuff that happened that we didn't get to see that, like, did they, like, I recently watched the Plebe and the Weeb episode where Digibro, the artist formerly known as Digi, and Endless Jess talked about it. And I didn't even really think, I just kind of accepted it before, but like, really? Why does Kaoru put on the choker? If he can take it off of Shinji, why does he put it on? Why don't they just dispose of it somehow? Like, I'm sure in the writers' heads there's some reason, like, oh, maybe something happens if you do that, and it has to be attached to somebody, I don't know. Who knows? And then, like, so what is it? Is it just that they convinced Kaoru to put it on? Is that all it is? And it was just that then they would know that once the impact starts, the choker will activate and stop it. But it doesn't stop it. What stops it is Mari yanking Shinji's plug out. Like, what it seems, I don't fucking know. For a while I thought like maybe when Mark 9 attacked the Wounder, it was like trying to hack into the DSS choker system to set it off, and that's why it went off when it did. But like, I don't think there's enough to indicate that. I don't know what the fuck is happening with the specifics of this last act of the movie. All I know is Gendo kills Sele, and now he's gonna do whatever the fuck he wants in the last movie. Another thing, so I suppose I should probably go back through some of my other notes to make sure there wasn't anything else I'm forgetting, but there was one note that I made to myself back when I watched the first movie, which was about halfway through, Gendo opens up Ray's plug and is you know, like, oh my god, are you okay? And then, of course, at the end of the movie, that scene is mirrored with Shinji instead. Oh, don't make me worry. You could try smiling. And that's paralleled again here at the end of the third movie, with Asuka finding Shinji's plug and saying, all you do is think about yourself. And then she jumps down into the plug and kicks him to the ground and drags him around. And can this guy get like one fucking break? Like, man. Like, this dude, let's think about this. Okay, so Apocalypse happens when this kid's born. Gets older. His mom effectively dies. She gets turned into a fucking robot, basically. And he forgets about it. Fuyutsuki says his memories got erased. Ray is telepathic for a little bit. Like, what's the deal with that? What's the deal with... Is it worth it? Is it really worth trying to think about it? I don't think so. The point is, Shinji's mom basically dies, and his dad basically abandons him, and basically all he has is his teacher. That's pretty much the only person he talks about prior to, from his life prior to joining Nerve. He gets a letter from a girl telling him, hey, meet me here. And he does, and he almost gets killed by a giant fucking monster. And the girl takes him to this underground bunker and is like, okay, here's this giant robot. It's your mom. We're not going to tell you yet, but the robot's your mom. What's left of her. You need to pilot it, and you need to fight the monsters. And he does it because his dad's the robot guy. And he assumes that by piloting the robot, he'll win his dad's approval, and he very much does not. And then, he goes to school, his new school, in the giant underground bunker city, and he gets beat up. And then, they're basically they're like, we don't need you. Don't do it unless you want to. Only do it if you want to. If you don't want to do it, you're useless to us. But there's also nothing else you can do. So you're fucked either way. Haha. And then in the second movie, Your best friend's inside the bad Ava. You need to kill her. I don't wanna. That seems wrong. Okay, well, we're just gonna force the system to take the robot over and make you do it. And then that happens. And then he's like, hey, that was pretty fucked up of you. And they're like, oh, you're fired. And then shit gets dire enough that he comes back and is like, please let me do it. And they're like, ah, shit, man, I guess we'll let you do it. And then he goes and does it. And they're like, yeah, do it. Do it, Shinji. And then he does it. Oh, you did it. You fucked the world. And then 14 years pass, and he is comatose or unconscious or stuck in LCL or something. He's gone. He's gone for 14 years. And they bring him back, and they explain nothing, and they hate him, and they let him go to Lord knows where to hang out with the new Rey clone, and like man, can like I don't know. Like I don't even know what to think. Like I need to watch the fourth movie all the way through, of course, but like I don't get it. You know? Like, what are they trying to... Like, the guy's just constantly getting beaten down. And for 3 movies now, everyone's just been telling him, oh, you're so naive. You want the world to not be shitty? You dumbass. Why do you want to change the world? You should, like, that's the thing, right? Is that that's sort of like that's his fatal flaw. That's the bad thing he has in common with Gendo, who is effectively the main villain now that Seele and shit's out of the picture. You know, is that like Shinji, Gendo also wants to change the world, and that's bad. They need to change themselves to fit the world, because God's in his heaven and all's right with the world. There's nothing wrong with the world. It's all your problem. And it's just like, at what point is this just like a little silly, you know? At what point do you go like, maybe not all of Shinji's problems are his own fault. Maybe he's not completely childish and naive to think that maybe he shouldn't be treated like shit all the time. But that's not really the attitude that the movie has. It's just, yeah. It's not about getting in the robot. It's not about staying out of the robot. It's about, you're bad, Shinjo. Nobody likes you. Get over it. Whatever. These movies suck. Like there's certainly, you know, there's some surface level entertainment, but like, god damn. You hear them revving up their motorcycles out there? Let me just make sure that there wasn't anything else I ever wrote in any of these that was like, you know, hey, revisit this topic. Don't forget. This is the first movie where humanity actually does seem kind of fucked in a real meaningful way. But again, the way it's communicated is mostly through just how much how many unused commodities are strewn about the wasteland. I don't know. Yeah, it is just like Shinji. I mean, no matter whether he's with Nerve or with Villa, he's basically, he's just he's living in a box. Whatever. Maybe I'll have more to say about the third movie. Or the fourth one. Why does the fourth movie have the number 3 in the name twice? 3.0 plus 1.0 thrice upon a time. I don't get it. I mean, I guess it was, apparently originally the third and fourth one were basically supposed to be the same movie. It was supposed to be a simultaneous release, but whatever. That's that information's more than like 10 years out of date at this point. So yeah, hopefully the next one will be more interesting. But that depends entirely on how interesting the movie is, because holy shit. This is Evangelion 3.33. Not very good. I think that's going to be it for this one. Comment, favorite, subscribe, like, or even dislike. Show that you care in the boxes down there. But seriously, we'll keep the fan service coming till the very end.